The air vibrated with a sickening anticipation, a collective hum of excitement and thinly veiled judgment that pressed down on Alara like a physical weight. Dust motes danced in the late afternoon sun, catching the glint of 100 eyes, all fixed on her, all waiting. This was the mating ceremony, the most sacred and defining ritual of their Silverwood pack, and Alara, standing awkwardly at the perimeter, felt like a sacrificial lamb. Her heart, a frail bird, fluttered against her ribs, a mix of desperate hope and chilling dread. She was a young female werewolf, her fur a muted shy brown, her eyes a soft unassuming hazel. Unlike the powerful vibrant wolves who moved with an effortless grace through the crowd, Alara was quiet, often overlooked, a whisper in a pack that celebrated roars. Her lineage was weaker, a branch considered insignificant, residing on the fringes of the main settlement. Their den, nestled deeper in the forest, was a constant reminder of their lesser status. Yet Alara harbored dreams potent and persistent, of love and acceptance, of a mate who would see beyond her humble origins. She yearned for the fierce, protective bond she observed between the dominant pairs, the palpable connection that promised a future, a family. This longing was a quiet ache, a constant companion in her solitary existence. Today, however, that ache was a raw, exposed nerve. Her chosen mate, Kale, stood amongst the stronger wolves, his silvery pelt gleaming, his aura radiating confidence. He was everything Alara was not. Powerful, charismatic, and born of a dominant line. For months she had dared to hope, interpreting his brief, fleeting glances as something more than mere acknowledgement. She had invested every shred of her youthful optimism into this moment, clinging to the belief that fate, in its infinite wisdom, would unite them. But as the Alpha's solemn pronouncements echoed through the clearing, the pack's dismissive attitude towards her, their cold indifference, was a familiar sting. They saw her as an easy target for rejection, a minor player in their grand self-important drama. The ceremonial drum began its slow, heavy beat, each thud reverberating through Alara's bones, amplifying her anxiety. The air crackled, thick with the unspoken tension of the impending public spectacle. She watched as other pairs stepped forward, their eyes locking, their silent agreement celebrated with joyous howls. Then it was her turn. The Alpha's deep voice called her name, an almost imperceptible pause before Kale's name followed. Her legs felt like lead, yet she managed to move forward, every step a monumental effort. Kale turned, and for a fleeting moment her heart soared. But his gaze hardened, a flicker of distaste crossing his features. The silence that followed was deafening, a vacuum before the inevitable explosion. Alara felt the weight of every eye, every sneering smile, every hushed whisper. The humiliation was a rising tide, threatening to engulf her entirely. Her breath hitched. The rejection was coming, she knew it, and the public nature of it would brand her forever. This was not just about a mate. This was about her worth, her place, her very existence within the pack. Please subscribe to our channel for more captivating stories like this. The words, when they finally came from Kale's lips, were sharper than any claw, more venomous than any viper. His voice, clear and cutting, sliced through the tense silence. I, Kale, son of Beta Theron, reject Alara, daughter of the lesser lineage. He paused, let the words hang, twisting the knife. Her blood is weak, her spirit too timid to grace my side. She would only drag down the future of this pack. A snicker rippled through the assembled wolves, wave of cruel amusement that crashed over Alara, leaving her gasping for air. The Alpha, a massive silver-furred brute named Volkov, merely nodded from his ceremonial perch, his eyes devoid of warmth, reflecting the cold indifference of a ruler who tolerated no weakness. Luna Serafina, his mate, managed a faint, almost imperceptible curl of her lip, a silent endorsement of Kale's brutal dismissal. The laughter swelled then, a cacophony of jeers and mocking howls, cementing Alara's public disgrace. Each sound was a stone, hurled directly at her, fracturing her already fragile heart. The pack's reaction was a unified, chilling display of conformity. There was no dissenting voice, no whispered word of sympathy. The few pups who looked on with wide, curious eyes were quickly shushed and pulled away by their parents, already learning the harsh lessons of pack hierarchy. Alara was an outsider, always had been. But this public repudiation solidified her status as an untouchable, a pariah. Her loneliness, a constant companion, now felt like an impenetrable fortress built around her, bricked with the pack's disdain. She searched the faces, desperate for a glance of understanding, a hint of kindness, but found only scorn and judgment. Their cruelty reinforced her isolation, making her feel utterly, completely alone in the world. Amidst the swirling tide of derision, a small hunched figure emerged from the periphery. It was Elder Maeve, her fur mottled with age, her eyes, though clouded by cataracts, still held a spark of ancient wisdom and compassion. Maeve, a healer and a keeper of old stories, was Alara's only true friend within the pack, a quiet solace in the cacophony of their lives. She offered a small, sad shake of her head, a gesture of silent pity that, paradoxically, brought Alara a flicker of comfort even as the sneering faces of pack members like Lyra and Ran, rivals from her youth, gloated openly. They had always resented Alara's gentle nature, mistaking it for weakness, and now their vindictive joy was palpable. Lyra, with her perfectly groomed pelt and haughty demeanor, shot Alara a triumphant, venomous glare, a clear message that this was her rightful place. Internally, Alara's world had shattered. Shame, hot and burning, coursed through her veins, mingling with a raw, agonizing heartbreak. The dreams she had cherished, the future she had envisioned, lay in ruins at her feet, trampled by the pack's collective boot. Tears pricked at her eyes, but she refused to let them fall, refusing to give them the satisfaction. Something else began to stir within her, a tiny ember of defiance beneath the ashes of her humiliation, a fierce, unyielding resolve. They had tried to break her, to reduce her to nothing, but she would not crumble. This pain, this profound injustice would not be her undoing. It would be her forging fire. She would not be broken by their cruelty. She would be remade by it. The humiliation was a brand, yes, but it was also a catalyst. She stood there, head held surprisingly high, a silent promise forming in her heart. She would not remain this timid, overlooked she-wolf. She would rise. The silent promise solidified into a burning conviction. Alara, with a strength she didn't know she possessed, turned her back on the jeering faces, the cold indifference of the alpha, and the crushing weight of their contempt. She fled, not with a whimper, but with a quiet, resolute fury simmering beneath her skin. The forest, her only true sanctuary, beckoned. Its ancient trees, gnarled and wise, offered a comforting embrace as she plunged deeper into its shadowy depths, seeking refuge from the pack's judgmental eyes and the suffocating echoes of their laughter. Each hurried step took her further from the clearing, further from the scene of her public execution. As she pushed past thorny bushes and leapt over gnarled roots, the adrenaline coursing through her veins a powerful, if painful, motivator. Her heart still ached, a bruised and battered thing, but the shame began to recede, replaced by a searing anger. As the sun dipped below the canopy, casting long, dancing shadows, Alara found a secluded clearing, a small haven hidden beneath the majestic boughs of an ancient oak. Here, surrounded by the scent of damp earth and pine, she allowed herself to crumble, the tears she had held back now streaming freely, hot and relentless. She howled, a raw, primal sound of pain and betrayal, ripping through the quiet solitude of the woods. It was a lament for lost dreams, for the innocence shattered, and for the family she had so desperately craved. But amidst her sorrow, a flicker of memory, like a distant ember, caught her attention. Tales whispered in hushed tones around ancient campfires by Elder Maeve, of a powerful exiled alpha, Liam. He was a figure shrouded in mystery and fear, banished years ago for an unknown transgression, a transgression the pack elders, including her own Alpha Volkov, had painted as heinous. Yet, Maeve's stories had always hinted at something more, a subtle undercurrent of injustice, suggesting Liam was a wolf of immense power, but also of profound principle. He was often described as formidable, his wolf form said to be a magnificent, scarred beast, his leadership challenged only by his unwavering sense of what was right, which clashed violently with the pack's entrenched, often corrupt, traditions. The pack now revered Alpha Volkov, but there had been a time, long before Alara's birth, when Liam's presence had commanded respect, even fear, from all. He was a lone wolf, an outcast, but one whose name still carried a weight, a quiet power that even distance and time could not diminish. A desperate, half-formed idea began to take root in Alara's mind, an audacious, almost insane thought that sparked a tiny ember of hope in the desolate landscape of her pain. to leave the pack entirely, to forge her own path, far from their petty cruelties and suffocating judgment. And perhaps, just perhaps, to seek out this legendary lone alpha. It was a wild, perilous notion, but what did she have left to lose? Her reputation was ruined, her future with her birth pack eradicated. The thought, once terrifying, now felt like a beacon in the darkness. Liam was a banished alpha, an outcast like she now was. Perhaps he would understand. Perhaps he would offer a different kind of strength, a different path. For days, Alara remained in her wolf form, a sleek brown creature blending seamlessly with the forest undergrowth. She ran until her muscles ached, until the wind whipped through her fur, cleansing her of the pack's stench. She hunted with a newfound ferocity, her instincts sharpened by desperation, her senses alive to every rustle and scent. In the solitude of the wilderness, she mourned the life she had lost, but also began to shed the weakness imposed upon her by others. With each passing hour, the timid she-wolf who had stood shaking at the mating ceremony faded, replaced by something wilder, more resilient. The humiliation had been a brand, but the forest was her crucible, and within its embrace, Alara was slowly, powerfully being reforged. A seed of defiant strength began to sprout, watered by her tears and nourished by her righteous anger. She would not merely survive, she would thrive. The seed of defiant strength now fully sprouted fueled Alara's every move. She meticulously planned her departure, each action imbued with a newfound purpose that silenced the lingering echoes of humiliation. Her small, secluded den became a hub of desperate activity. She gathered essential supplies, prioritizing practical items over sentimental ones. Tough, dried strips of venison and wild berries provided sustenance, carefully wrapped in large leaves. A water skin, fashioned from a tough animal bladder, was filled from a hidden spring known only to her. She honed her hunting knife, its blade glinting ominously in the dim light, a stark contrast to the timid girl who once only dreamed of such tools. Knowledge of the surrounding territories, gleaned from Elder Maeve's stories and her own solitary wanderings, became her most prized possession. She traced mental maps identifying potential dangers and safe havens, her mind now a keen instrument focused on survival. Before she left, a final defiant act. Alara scraped a clear message into the soft earth just outside her old den, visible only to those who knew where to look. It wasn't an apology nor a plea but a symbol. A single stylized paw print, larger and more defined than her own, signifying not an end but a beginning. It was a silent, powerful declaration to her former pack. She was gone, and she would not be forgotten. With one last glance at the familiar, yet now alien surroundings, Alara embarked on her perilous journey. The unknown wilderness stretched before her, a vast, daunting canvas, but the memory of Kale's sneer and the pack's cruel laughter propelled her forward, banishing self-doubt. Each step away from the Silverwood pack was a step toward reclaiming herself. The initial days were brutal. The wilderness tested her relentlessly. A gnawing hunger became a constant companion, battling against the surge of adrenaline. The nights were a symphony of unfamiliar sounds, every rustle and snap of a twig a potential threat. She encountered minor challenges that pushed her to her limits. A snarling lone wolf whose territory she inadvertently crossed required quick thinking and a strategic retreat. A sudden torrential downpour left her soaked and shivering, forcing her to construct a makeshift shelter from fallen branches and broad leaves. These were not the grand, dramatic battles of pack lore, but the quiet, persistent struggles of survival that forged resilience. Each solved problem, each overcome obstacle however small, sharpened her instincts and hardened her resolve. Alara learned to read the subtle signs of the forest, the faint scent of deer, the distant cry of a hawk marking prey, the precise angle of the sun guiding her path. Her senses, once dulled by the comfortable routine of pack life, became acutely attuned to her surroundings. She felt the vibrations of the earth beneath her paws, tasted the subtle changes in the wind, and saw patterns in the shadows that would have once escaped her notice. The naive innocence that had characterized her earlier life began to shed like an old skin. The girl who timidly hoped for acceptance was slowly transforming into a resourceful, independent she-wolf. She realized that the deepest strength came not from external validation, but from within, from the stubborn refusal to break, from the unyielding will to endure. This journey, fraught with danger and solitude, was not just about finding a new place, but about finding herself, unburdened by the expectations and cruelty of others. Every passing day, every challenge met, chipped away at her past vulnerability, replacing it with a steely self-reliance. She was no longer just surviving. She was evolving, blossoming into a creature of fierce independence, guided by an inner compass that pointed toward an unknown, yet promising future. As Alara traveled deeper into the uncharted territories, the wilderness slowly began to give way to sparse human settlements and isolated trading posts, places she would have once avoided but now approached with a calculated caution. Here, amidst the unfamiliar faces and strange dialects, whispers of the lone alpha, Liam, began to emerge, carried on the wind like dry leaves. She pieced together fragments of conversation from transient shifters, passing through these remote outposts. A grizzled old wolf with a missing ear spoke of Liam's swift justice against poachers. A young she-wolf huddled by a campfire recounted tales of his unwavering protection of vulnerable forest creatures. His reputation was a complex tapestry, formidable and dangerous, yes, a force to be reckoned with, but also unexpectedly just, holding a moral compass far truer than the one wielded by her former pack's alpha. He wasn't just a brutal exile, he was a legend, his story painting a picture of a leader whose harshness was tempered by a deep, almost ancient, sense of right and wrong. A stark contrast to the petty tyrants she had known. The journey, while enlightening, was far from safe. One moonless night, as Alara scouted for a suitable dinning spot, a sudden acrid scent filled the air, a rogue shifter. He emerged from the dense undergrowth, his eyes glinting with a predatory hunger, his wolf form gaunt and scarred, clearly an outcast with no pack and no rules. Before, Alara would have frozen, fear seizing her limbs, but the wilderness had carved new strength into her. She met his snarling challenge head-on, her own wolf form, while smaller, moving with a newfound agility and ferocity. She dodged his clumsy lunge, retaliating with a precise snap that caught him off guard, forcing him to yelp and stumble. The confrontation was brief but brutal. Alara, fueled by the memory of her humiliation and the burning need to survive, fought with a desperate courage, demonstrating a resilience that was a clear departure from her former, timid self. She eventually drove him off, his whimpering retreat a testament to her growing power, leaving her panting but victorious, a surge of fierce pride coursing through her. Yet, despite these small triumphs, the arduous journey took its toll. The constant vigilance, the gnawing loneliness, the relentless physical exertion, all conspired to wear her down. There were nights when the cold solitude pressed in on her, threatening to overwhelm the flickering flame of her resolve. The vastness of the wilderness, once a symbol of freedom, sometimes felt like an endless, suffocating expanse. Doubt, a venomous serpent, would coil in her mind, whispering that she was foolish, that she was lost, that she would never find Liam, or if she did, he would scorn her as her pack had. But then the searing memory of Kale's rejection, the alpha's sneering indifference, and the pack's cruel laughter would surge forth, a bitter, potent elixir that banished the encroaching despair. That humiliation was the fuel that stoked her inner fire, driving her onward, reminding her that turning back was not an option. She had nothing to return to, only a future to forge. One crisp morning, as she navigated a particularly dense patch of ancient forest, Alara stumbled upon an anomaly. Carved subtly into the weathered bark of a colossal oak, half obscured by moss and time, was a symbol. It was abstract, a series of interlocking spirals and sharp angles, almost bird-like in its execution. Her heart gave a sudden, powerful lurch as recognition dawned. This was no common carving. It was an ancient mark, whispered about in Maeve's oldest tales, known to be associated with Liam's original, long-forgotten lineage. It was a sign undeniable and profound, confirming that she was indeed on the right path, that her desperate quest was not in vain. The symbol, a silent testament to a history almost lost, sent a thrill of hope and anticipation through her, banishing the last vestiges of doubt. Alara felt a surge of renewed energy, her footsteps now purposeful, laden with the weight of destiny. She was closer than ever. The symbol, a silent testament to a history almost lost, sent a thrill of hope and anticipation through her, banishing the last vestiges of doubt. Alara felt a surge of renewed energy, her footsteps now purposeful, laden with the weight of destiny. She was closer than ever. Following the subtle, almost imperceptible signs that only a highly attuned wolf could discern, Elara pushed deeper into the wilds, her senses vibrating with a new intensity. The air grew colder, crisper, carrying the scent of ancient pine and untouched earth. The forest itself began to change, the trees growing taller, their branches thicker, forming a dense, protective canopy that filtered the sunlight into dappled patterns on the forest floor. This was different from any wilderness she had known. It felt older, wilder, imbued with a quiet, formidable power. This, she instinctively knew, was Liam's territory. It was a desolate land in some ways, devoid of the bustling pack life she was accustomed to. Yet it possessed a strangely beautiful, untamed grandeur. Towering peaks, perpetually capped with snow, pierced the sky in the distance, their slopes scarred by rockfalls and ancient glaciers. Rushing rivers fed by mountain springs, carved deep gorges, their waters icy and clear. Elara moved cautiously now, her hunter's instincts on high alert, knowing that every stone, every rustle could be a sign. She wasn't just entering a territory. She was stepping into the domain of a legendary alpha, a place where the rules of the wild would be absolute. The journey had prepared her for this, hardening her body and sharpening her mind, but an undeniable tremor of apprehension still ran through her. Suddenly, without warning, the environment itself seemed to present challenges. A narrow, treacherous mountain pass, its path obscured by recent rockslides, forced her to carefully pick her way, testing her balance and agility. Later, a sudden localized blizzard descended, blanketing the landscape in a thick, disorienting white. Elara huddled beneath an overhang, battling the biting cold, her survival instincts screaming at her to find shelter and warmth. These weren't random acts of nature. They felt deliberate, almost as if the land itself was assessing her. She pushed through each obstacle, relying on the primal strength she had cultivated, her determination burning brighter with every hardship overcome. She scaled icy inclines, navigated roaring currents, and endured freezing nights, each test subtly gauging her strength, her intelligence, and the indomitable spirit that now defined her. Unknown to her, these were indeed rudimentary tests, instinctively woven into the fabric of the territory by its singular inhabitant, designed to deter the weak and challenge the determined. As she traversed a high ridge overlooking a vast, primeval valley, Elara's breath hitched. Below, silhouetted against the setting sun, a magnificent wolf moved with a fluid, almost ethereal grace. Its fur was the color of midnight, interspersed with streaks of silver, hinting at age and countless battles. It was massive, easily twice the size of any wolf she had ever seen, its muscles rippling beneath the sleek pelt. The most striking feature, even from this distance, was the array of scars that crisscrossed its powerful frame, each one a testament to a life lived on the edge. This was him. This was Liam. His gait spoke of immense power, but also an underlying aura of deep wisdom, a solitude that had honed him into something more than just an alpha. He paused, lifting his great head, sniffing the air, and for a terrifying, exhilarating moment, Elara felt his gaze, sharp and penetrating, sweep across her hiding place. He didn't react overtly, merely continued his patrol, but the intensity of that fleeting glimpse sent a jolt through her. Elara knew then that her arrival had not gone unnoticed. He was aware of her. He had likely been aware of her for some time, observing her navigate his territory. Exhausted, physically battered by the elements, yet utterly resolute, Elara took a deep breath. There was no more hiding, no more cautious approach. The time for subtlety was over. With a surge of courage that surprised even herself, she purposefully stepped out from behind the cover of the ancient pines, planting her feet firmly on the open ground. The cold wind whipped around her, tugging at her fur, but she stood tall, her eyes fixed on the distant, formidable figure of the lone alpha. She was ready. Whatever awaited her, she would face it. Her quest had led her here, to the threshold of the known and the unknown, and she would not falter now. The battle for her future, and perhaps even her past, was about to begin. The battle for her future, and perhaps even her past, was about to begin. She watched as the massive wolf, Liam, turned with a deliberate slowness, his midnight fur rippling with latent power. His eyes, molten gold in the fading light, fixed on her, piercing through her newfound courage, probing the very depths of her soul. He approached with measured, silent steps, each paw fall heavy with unspoken authority. The air around him crackled with an almost palpable intensity, a raw, untamed energy that spoke of solitary might forged in the crucible of exile. He stopped mere feet from her, his sheer size dwarfing her, his wolf form exuding an initial hostility, a wary suspicion that mirrored the wildness of his domain. A low growl rumbled deep in his chest, a sound like shifting earth, questioning her presence, demanding an explanation. "State your purpose, trespasser." His voice, when it finally reached her mind through the ancient pack link, was a gravelly command, devoid of warmth, imbued with the harshness of a lone existence. It wasn't a question so much as an order. Elara swallowed, her throat suddenly dry. This was it. The moment she had risked everything for. Drawing upon the humiliation that had fueled her journey, the anger that had become her steel, she met his gaze without flinching. Her voice, though softer than his, carried a surprising conviction, born of desperation and deep-seated resolve. "I am Elara, daughter of a forgotten lineage," she began, her words flowing with a newfound eloquence she hadn't known she possessed. "I come seeking not refuge but strength. I was humiliated at a mating ceremony by my own pack, cast out for weakness that was never truly mine, but imposed upon me by their narrow minds." She explained, succinctly and without self-pity, the public rejection, the sneers of Kale, the cold indifference of Alpha Volkov and Luna Serafina. She spoke of the festering injustice, the burning desire to not just survive, but to rise above the cruelty that had defined her past. Her story, raw and honest, wasn't a plea for pity, but an appeal to his understanding, to his own history of exile. She appealed to the justice she had heard whispered in the distant towns, hoping against hope that the legend held truth. As she spoke, Liam's golden eyes, though still intense, seemed to soften imperceptibly, the hostility receding just a fraction, replaced by a deep, ancient sorrow that he tried to suppress. A flicker of something profound crossed his features, recognition, perhaps, or a memory of his own pain. His jawline tightened, a subtle tension in his powerful form, betraying the impact of her words. Elara sensed a connection, a silent bond of understanding forming between them, forged in the shared experience of injustice and banishment. She could almost feel the weight of his own past, the unspoken burden of his exile, mirroring her own fresh wounds. He had known this pain. He had lived this life. His reasons for banishment remained shrouded, but his reaction to her tale confirmed a similar, deep-seated betrayal. The silence that followed her confession stretched, heavy with unspoken emotions, filled only by the whisper of the wind through the pines. Liam finally broke it, his voice still gruff, but with an underlying current of something akin to respect. "You speak with fire, little wolf. The wild has sharpened you." He paced slowly, his gaze sweeping over the rugged landscape, then back to her. "My life here is harsh. I offer no comfort, no easy path. You seek strength? You will find only brutal lessons. You will know solitude such as you have never imagined, and you will risk everything simply by being in my shadow." He stopped before her again, his presence overwhelming, a force of nature. "But you have courage, Elara, and a spirit that refuses to be quenched. I will take you under my wing, as you say. I will train you. But understand this. There is no turning back. If you agree, you embrace a life of hardship, discipline, and a truth that few ever dare to face. You will become a wolf of the wild, accountable only to yourself and the ancient laws of survival. Are you certain this is the path you choose?" His question hung in the air, a final unyielding challenge. Elara met his gaze, her heart thrumming with a fierce, unwavering resolve. "I am certain," she replied, her voice firm, unwavering. The lone alpha nodded, a subtle gesture of acceptance, and the harsh training, the solitary life, was now hers to embrace. The lone alpha nodded, a subtle gesture of acceptance, and the harsh training, the solitary life, was now hers to embrace. Liam's methods were relentless, a testament to his own brutal existence in exile. He pushed Elara beyond any limit she had ever conceived, transforming her once fragile body into a finely tuned instrument of survival and combat. Their days began before dawn, with punishing runs through the treacherous mountain terrain, her lungs burning, her muscles screaming in protest. He taught her how to climb sheer rock faces with the agility of a mountain goat, how to navigate icy rivers where a single misstep meant certain death. Every lesson was practical, every exercise designed to hone a specific skill vital for survival in their unforgiving domain. He taught her advanced tracking techniques, not just identifying paw prints, but reading the subtle disturbances in the undergrowth, the faint scent trails carried on the wind, the almost imperceptible changes in an animal's behavior. He showed her how to hunt with deadly efficiency, transforming her past timid approaches into calculated, silent strikes. Combat training was equally brutal. Liam, in his immense wolf form, would spar with her, not holding back, forcing her to anticipate, to react, to find strength she didn't know she possessed. She learned defensive maneuvers, offensive tactics, targeting weak points, using her smaller size to her advantage. Her body became a canvas of bruises and scrapes, but with each new ache, a new layer of resilience was built. He taught her patience, the art of waiting, observing, understanding her environment not as an enemy, but as an extension of herself. Through shared hardships and the crucible of this intense training, a deep unspoken bond began to form between Alara and Liam. It was a connection forged not in words but in sweat, blood, and mutual respect. She saw the unwavering discipline in his eyes, the profound wisdom etched into his scarred face, and the quiet dignity of a leader who lived by an unyielding code. He in turn witnessed her indomitable spirit, her fierce determination, and her astounding capacity for growth. Their relationship transcended that of mentor and student. It became a partnership of two wolves who had both faced profound betrayal and found solace, if not comfort, in each other's presence. The daily challenges, the moments of shared triumph after mastering a particularly difficult skill, created an unbreakable tether between their spirits. Alara started to discover dormant abilities within herself, strengths she never knew existed. Her wolf form, once a shy, muted brown, began to shift. Her fur seemed to deepen in color, almost shimmering with a newfound vitality. Her senses, already heightened by the wilderness, became incredibly acute. She could hear the distant rustle of a mouse under snow, catch the scent of a storm hours before it arrived, and see with startling clarity in the darkest night. Her mind too sharpened. Liam's focus on strategy and understanding the natural world awakened an innate understanding of tactics and patterns. She began to anticipate his moves during their spars, to predict the behavior of prey, to read the nuanced signals of the wild with an almost instinctual ease. It was as if her true self, long suppressed by the expectations of her former pack, was finally being allowed to flourish, blooming under Liam's demanding tutelage. In the quiet moments, subtle affections began to blossom, hinting at a deeper connection between them. After a grueling training session, Liam would sometimes offer her a share of his kill, a rare gesture of trust and provision. A low rumble of approval or a gentle nudge with his massive snout would convey more encouragement than any spoken praise when she successfully completed a difficult task. Alara found herself seeking his gaze, finding a strange comfort in his stoic presence. She noticed the way his golden eyes would soften almost imperceptibly when she pushed past her perceived limits, a flicker of pride that warmed her to her core. There were long evenings spent beneath the stars, where, without a single word, their spirits connected, two solitary beings finding an unexpected resonance. A tender, unspoken affection grew between them, a quiet promise of something more profound forming in the silence, a connection far deeper than any forced mating bond. The tender, unspoken affection grew between them, a quiet promise of something more profound forming in the silence, a connection far deeper than any forced mating bond. One evening, as a cold mountain wind soughed through the pines, and a crackling fire cast dancing shadows across their faces, Liam finally spoke of his past, his voice a low rumble that resonated with ancient pain. Alara listened, utterly captivated, as he unveiled the full, bitter truth of his banishment. It was not, as the Silverwood pack had always claimed, for some heinous, unspecified crime, but a calculated betrayal orchestrated by the very Alpha who now ruled Alara's former home, Volkov. Liam recounted the events with a chilling clarity. Years ago he had been the true Alpha, a leader respected for his strength, but more importantly, for his unwavering ethical code. He believed in fairness, in protecting the weak, and in a harmonious balance with nature, principles that often clashed with Volkov's ambition and thirst for unchecked power. Volkov, then a powerful beta, had slowly amassed a faction loyal only to him, whispering dissent and sowing seeds of mistrust among the younger wolves. The final rupture came during a period of severe Famine. Liam had advocated for sharing dwindling resources equitably among all pack members, even those on the fringes, and for seeking sustainable hunting grounds beyond their traditional territory. Volkov, however, had secretly hoarded resources, manipulating the scarcity to exert control and consolidate power, prioritizing his inner circle and condemning lesser families to suffering. When Liam confronted him, a fierce dispute erupted. Volkov, cunning and ruthless, twisted Liam's attempts at just leadership into accusations of weakness and reckless endangerment of the pack. He staged a false attack on a neighboring human settlement, meticulously framing Liam as the instigator, accusing him of breaking the sacred truce between species, a crime punishable by immediate exile. The evidence, though fabricated, was presented with such conviction, and backed by Volkov's loyalists, that the pack elders, swayed by fear and Volkov's growing influence, had no choice but to banish Liam. It was a swift, brutal coup, leaving Liam stripped of his rank, his reputation and his home, forced into the solitary wilderness he had now come to master. His exile was not a punishment for transgression, but a consequence of his unwavering integrity, a betrayal of justice itself. As Liam's story unfolded, Alara felt a profound shock, followed by a surge of furious understanding. The humiliation she had suffered at Volkov's hands, the pack's indifference to her plight, all suddenly made terrible sense. Volkov was a tyrant, a manipulator who had built his empire on lies and the suffering of others. Her personal vendetta against her old pack, once a solitary ache, now aligned perfectly with Liam's righteous desire for justice. Their individual grievances converged, solidifying their partnership into a shared mission. It was no longer just about Alara reclaiming her dignity or Liam clearing his name. It was about exposing the truth, restoring integrity to a pack corrupted by deceit, and ensuring that no other wolf suffered under Volkov's cruel reign. With this newfound clarity and purpose, they began planning their return to Alara's former pack's territory. It was not for revenge in the petty sense, but for reclamation of truth, of justice, and of true leadership. They would not arrive as defeated exiles, but as harbingers of change. Liam meticulously outlined strategies, mapping out the territory, identifying potential allies among the disillusioned, and preparing for the inevitable confrontation. Alara, no longer the timid she-wolf, contributed her intimate knowledge of the pack's customs, weaknesses, and the subtle cues of its members, her insights proving invaluable. One afternoon, while meticulously organizing Liam's collection of ancient texts and maps, Alara stumbled upon an aged, leather-bound scroll tucked away in a hidden compartment. Its parchment was brittle, covered in faded, intricate symbols and drawings. As she carefully unrolled it, her eyes scanned the elegant script, deciphering the words of an ancient pack prophecy. It spoke of a time of darkness and false rule, foretelling the return of a lone alpha, banished unjustly, and a forgotten she-wolf humiliated and cast aside. Together, the prophecy proclaimed, they would unite, expose the corruption, and bring forth a new era of justice and unity to the fracturing pack. Alara's heart pounded as she read the words aloud, her voice trembling slightly. It was a testament, a divine blueprint for their very journey. Their path was not just a quest for personal vindication, but a fulfillment of ancient destiny. The realization solidified their resolve. Their return was not just a powerful act, but an inevitable one, foretold by the very ancestors who had guided their steps. The prediction solidifying their resolve, their return was not just a powerful act, but an inevitable one, foretold by the very ancestors who had guided their steps. With this profound understanding anchoring them, Alara and Liam embarked on their journey back to her former pack's territory. They moved as a single, formidable unit, their bond now an unbreakable force. Two halves of a whole, each complementing the other's strengths. Alara, once a timid shadow, now walked with a purposeful stride, her senses acutely attuned to Liam's powerful presence beside her. The weight of the prophecy, rather than being a burden, became a shield, imbued with the authority of ancient wisdom. Their path was not without its trials. The territories they traversed were wilder now, less frequented by established packs, fertile ground for opportunists and outcasts. They encountered rogue shifters, remnants of broken packs, who saw their passage as an invitation for conflict. One such encounter involved a trio of aggressive males, their eyes glinting with territorial hunger, snarling a challenge as Alara and Liam crossed a narrow mountain pass. Before her training, Alara might have cowered, but now, a primal roar tore from her throat as she shifted, her form now sleek and muscular, her movements swift and precise. Liam, a silent, deadly whirlwind of power beside her, dispatched two of the rogues with terrifying efficiency, his sheer dominance asserting itself in every fluid movement. Alara, employing the combat techniques Liam had so painstakingly taught her, moved with a grace that belied her past, incapacitating the third with a swift, targeted strike that left him whimpering and retreating. They faced territorial disputes with smaller, less organized groups, but their combined strength, their absolute unity, proved overwhelming. No verbal threats were needed. Their formidable presence alone often sufficed to send others scattering. Each obstacle overcome, each challenge met, was not just a testament to their individual growth, but a stunning display of their combined, unshakable power, broadcasting their might inadvertently as they approached their destination. As they drew closer to the Silverwood lands, the whispers began, not from their direct encounters, but carried on the wind, through scattered trappers, human merchants, and lone wanderers who had glimpsed the pair. Tales of a powerful unknown alpha, his presence commanding awe and fear, and a resolute she-wolf by his side, her eyes holding the depth of ancient wisdom yet radiating youth's defiance, spread like wildfire. The reports grew increasingly detailed, speaking of their effortless traversal of dangerous terrain, their unmatched prowess in fending off threats, their almost supernatural coordination. These rumors, reaching the Silverwood Pack's distant borders, ignited a ripple of unease, then outright alarm. The established alpha, Volkov, laughed them off initially, dismissing them as wild tales, but the sheer consistency and vividness of the accounts began to gnaw at his arrogant confidence. He sensed a looming threat, an unknown force gathering on his horizon. Alara, meanwhile, continued her profound transformation. The timid girl who had been publicly scorned was gone, utterly eradicated. Her physical form, honed by Liam's brutal training and the rigors of the journey, radiated an undeniable strength. Her movements were fluid, her posture regal, her gaze direct and unyielding. The muted brown of her fur now seemed to possess a deeper, richer hue, almost shining with a vibrant energy. Emotionally, she was a fortress. The constant fear of judgment and rejection had evaporated, replaced by an inner conviction, a profound self-acceptance forged in the fires of adversity. She radiated confidence, an almost regal aura that commanded respect from those they encountered. The ghost of humiliation had been vanquished, replaced by a resolute power that resonated with the ancient prophecy she now carried in her heart. She was no longer just Alara. She was a force, a rightful partner to the alpha beside her, ready to reclaim her destiny. The prediction solidifying their resolve, their return was not just a powerful act, but an inevitable one, foretold by the very ancestors who had guided their steps. With this profound understanding anchoring them, Alara and Liam embarked on their journey back to her former pack's territory. They moved as a single, formidable unit, their bond now an unbreakable force. Two halves of a whole, each complementing the other's strengths. Alara, once a timid shadow, now walked with a purposeful stride, her senses acutely attuned to Liam's powerful presence beside her. The weight of the prophecy, rather than being a burden, became a shield, imbued with the authority of ancient wisdom. Their path was not without its trials. The territories they traversed were wilder now, less frequented by established packs, fertile ground for opportunists and outcasts. They encountered rogue shifters, remnants of broken packs, who saw their passage as an invitation for conflict. One such encounter involved a trio of aggressive males, their eyes glinting with territorial hunger, snarling a challenge as Alara and Liam crossed a narrow mountain pass. Before her training, Alara might have cowered, but now, a primal roar tore from her throat as she shifted, her form now sleek and muscular, her movements swift and precise. Liam, a silent, deadly whirlwind of power beside her, dispatched two of the rogues with terrifying efficiency, his sheer dominance asserting itself in every fluid movement. Alara, employing the combat techniques Liam had so painstakingly taught her, moved with a grace that belied her past, incapacitating the third with a swift, targeted strike that left him whimpering and retreating. They faced territorial disputes with smaller, less organized groups, but their combined strength, their absolute unity, proved overwhelming. No verbal threats were needed. Their formidable presence alone often sufficed to send others scattering. Each obstacle overcome, each challenge met, was not just a testament to their individual growth, but a stunning display of their combined unshakable power, broadcasting their might inadvertently as they approached their destination. As they drew closer to the Silverwood lands, the whispers began, not from their direct encounters, but carried on the wind, through scattered trappers, human merchants, and lone wanderers who had glimpsed the pair. Tales of a powerful unknown alpha, his presence commanding awe and fear, and a resolute she-wolf by his side, her eyes holding the depth of ancient wisdom yet radiating youth's defiance, spread like wildfire. The reports grew increasingly detailed, speaking of their effortless traversal of dangerous terrain, their unmatched prowess in fending off threats, their almost supernatural coordination. These rumors, reaching the Silverwood Pack's distant borders, ignited a ripple of unease, then outright alarm. The established alpha, Volkov, laughed them off initially, dismissing them as wild tales, but the sheer consistency and vividness of the accounts began to gnaw at his arrogant confidence. He sensed a looming threat, an unknown force gathering on his horizon. Alara, meanwhile, continued her profound transformation. The timid girl who had been publicly scorned was gone, utterly eradicated. Her physical form, honed by Liam's brutal training and the rigors of the journey, radiated an undeniable strength. Her movements were fluid, her posture regal, her gaze direct and unyielding. The muted brown of her fur now seemed to possess a deeper, richer hue, almost shining with a vibrant energy. Emotionally, she was a fortress. The constant fear of judgment and rejection had evaporated, replaced by an inner conviction, a profound self-acceptance forged in the fires of adversity. She radiated confidence, an almost regal aura that commanded respect from those they encountered. The ghost of humiliation had been vanquished, replaced by a resolute power that resonated with the ancient prophecy she now carried in her heart. She was no longer just Alara. She was a force, a rightful partner to the alpha beside her, ready to reclaim her destiny. The crisp forest air, once a balm, now vibrated with a palpable tension as Alara and Liam finally stepped across the invisible boundary into what was unmistakably the heart of Silverwood Pack territory. The familiar scent of pine and damp earth was tainted by something else, a lingering miasma of stale power and fear. Every rustle of leaves, every distant bird call, felt charged with a strange new energy. They moved through the periphery, their combined presence a silent, undeniable force, a storm gathering on the horizon. Neither spoke, their communication flowing through a deeper, instinctual channel, a perfect synchronization born of shared purpose and profound connection. Alara felt the old anxieties stir, phantom echoes of her past humiliation, but they were quickly quelled by the immense, steady power radiating from Liam beside her. He was her anchor, her shield, and her sword. Their direct approach to the main pack clearing was swift and deliberate. They bypassed the usual patrolling routes, appearing almost magically from the dense woods that bordered the ceremonial ground where Alara had once been so cruelly rejected. The first wolves they encountered were two young guards, their fur sleek and their poses confident, until their eyes fell upon the approaching figures. Their bravado crumbled instantly, replaced by wide-eyed shock and a visible tremor of terror. Alara saw a flicker of recognition in one's gaze, a memory of the timid she-wolf, now confronted by an imposing, transformed presence. The guards' mouths gaped, unable to form words, their training utterly useless against the sheer, overwhelming power of Liam, whose dark fur and scarred visage exuded an aura of ancient, untamed authority. Alara, standing tall and resolute beside him, was a vision of intimidating grace, her eyes holding defiance that had long replaced meekness. The guards instinctively fell back, their retreat a clear signal of the disarray their arrival had caused. Liam, his voice a low, resonant growl that vibrated through the forest, spoke directly into the minds of the two stunned guards, bypassing any need for physical speech. "Go. Tell your alpha that Liam has returned, and he brings with him the true Luna of this pack." His words carried an undeniable weight, a command that brooked no argument. The guards, without another word, turned and fled, their tails tucked, a clear message of fear and urgency radiating from them as they sprinted towards the alpha's den. Alara felt a surge of grim satisfaction. This was not just a return, it was a declaration. The news of their arrival spread like wildfire through the pack. A palpable fear began to spread through the ruling faction, reaching the Alpha Volkov and his Luna Serafina, who had been enjoying a complacent afternoon in their den. Volkov, initially dismissive of the scattered rumors, now felt a cold dread claw at his heart. Liam. The name itself was a ghost, a legend he had tried to bury. And a true Luna? That could only mean Alara. The humiliation he had inflicted upon her, the injustice he had orchestrated against Liam, now returned to haunt him with terrifying clarity. He imagined the whispers, the questions, the wavering loyalty amongst his pack members as the truth of his past misdeeds threatened to spill out. The panic within the ruling faction was almost tangible, their carefully constructed facade of power beginning to crack under the pressure of the impending storm. The complacent days were over. The reckoning had arrived. The news reached the Alpha and Luna, causing panic and disarray within the ruling faction. The complacent days were over. The reckoning had arrived. Volkov scrambled, his usual arrogance replaced by a frantic energy, barking orders at his betas to secure the perimeter, to rally the pack, to prepare for a confrontation he had never truly believed would come. Serafina, her face pale, whispered nervously about the ancient prophecy, a tale she had always dismissed as mere folklore, now suddenly terrifyingly real. Finally they stood before the assembled pack, Alara and Liam, a powerful unwavering front. The main clearing, the site of Alara's deepest humiliation, now served as their stage for justice. The atmosphere was thick, not with anticipation this time, but with a suffocating tension, a palpable fear mixed with a growing uneasy curiosity from the pack members gathered. Volkov, flanked by his betas, stood stiffly at the head of the clearing, his eyes narrowed in an attempt to project authority that now felt hollow. Beside him, Kale, Alara's former chosen mate, shifted uncomfortably, his gaze darting between the commanding figure of Liam and the transformed Alara he barely recognized. Alara stepped forward, her every movement radiating assurance. Her voice, clear and strong, resonated through the silence, no longer shy but imbued with fierce conviction. "I am Alara," she declared, her eyes sweeping over the faces of her former tormentors, pausing briefly on Kale, whose face now registered a mixture of awe and shame. "Once you cast me out, mocked my lineage, and publicly shamed me for a weakness that existed only in your own corrupt perception." She turned her gaze to Volkov, her voice rising with righteous indignation. "Alpha Volkov, you stood by, silently endorsing the cruelty, just as you once endorsed the lie that banished Liam, the true Alpha, from these lands." She detailed the insidious corruption, the deliberate deceit, her words painting a stark picture of Volkov's tyranny, of resources hoarded, of justice denied, of a pack led astray by a leader more concerned with personal power than collective well-being. As Alara's accusations hung in the air, Liam stepped forward, his powerful presence silencing any potential murmurings. He didn't need to speak. His sheer aura of truth and authority was enough. Then, with a subtle gesture, he produced a small dried pouch from within his thick fur. Withdrawing a bundle of ancient, exquisitely detailed carvings on thin wooden tablets, he presented them to the pack. These were not mere trinkets. They were irrefutable pieces of his original pack's history, records meticulously kept by the elders, proving Volkov's manipulations during the famine. He then presented another, a set of paw prints clearly Volkov's, leading directly to the border of the human settlement, matching the scene of the false attack that had led to Liam's banishment. These were undeniable pieces of evidence, preserved through the years, proving the Alpha's past transgressions and the true reasons for his unjust exile. The tablets, passed reverently amongst the older, more discerning wolves, sealed Volkov's fate. A ripple of murmurs, far different from the cruel laughter of years past, spread through the pack. The smug confidence of Volkov's inner circle wavered. The faces of the pack members, especially those who had been indifferent or complicit in Alara's humiliation and Liam's banishment, began to show doubt, then shame. Their loyalty, once absolute, now visibly wavered. The carefully constructed facade of Volkov's reign cracked and splintered, exposing the rot beneath. The truth, long buried, had finally surfaced, shaking the pack's faith in their leader to its very core. The truth, long buried, had finally surfaced, shaking the pack's faith in their leader to its very core. Volkov, cornered and exposed, his eyes darting wildly, his face a mask of furious desperation, knew his reign was crumbling. The murmurs were growing louder, the doubt in the pack's eyes becoming undeniable. With a guttural snarl, a final desperate attempt to reclaim control and silence the rising tide of dissent, he issued the ultimate challenge. A leadership challenge, he roared, his voice cracking slightly. By ancient law, alpha against alpha. I challenge Liam for the right to lead this pack. It was a desperate gamble, but the only card he had left to play, hoping his size and established authority would somehow intimidate Liam or sway the pack back to his side. Liam met Volkov's furious gaze with a calm, almost predatory stillness. There was no hesitation, no fear, only a deep, ancient certainty. He simply nodded, a silent acceptance of the challenge. The pack immediately recoiled, creating a wide circle, the tension vibrating palpably in the air. This was the ultimate trial by combat, a primal struggle for dominance that would decide the fate of their pack. Both alphas shifted, their human forms dissolving into powerful wolf shapes. Volkov, a massive silver-furred brute, lunged first, a blur of teeth and claws roaring his defiance. His movements were powerful, driven by rage and desperation, but lacked the refined precision of Liam's training. Liam, black as midnight with streaks of silver, met him head-on, not with brute force, but with a strategic grace born of years of solitary survival and honed combat. Their initial clash was a whirlwind of snarling fury, snapping jaws and rending claws. Dust and fur filled the air as they circled, feinted, and struck. Volkov fought with an uncontrolled savagery, aiming for quick, decisive damage. Liam, however, fought with a calculated intensity, deflecting, evading, and waiting for openings, slowly, inexorably, gaining the upper hand. He was a master of anticipating his opponent, weaving through Volkov's powerful lunges, his movements economical and lethal. Each time Volkov overextended, Liam capitalized, delivering precise, debilitating blows that chipped away at the reigning alpha's strength and confidence. Throughout the fierce and brutal duel, Elara stood firm at the edge of the circle, her posture unwavering, her eyes locked on Liam. Her presence was a silent anchor, a source of profound strength for him. She projected her unwavering support through their empathic link, a steady current of belief that flowed between them, fortifying his resolve. More than just an emotional support, Elara's sharp instincts, honed by her extensive training, were keenly aware of the periphery. She subtly shifted her weight, asserting her presence and visually countering any attempts at dirty tricks from Volkov's loyal Luna, Serafina, or other pack members sympathetic to the old regime. When Serafina subtly moved to distract Liam with a high-pitched snarl, Elara met her gaze with an icy warning, a direct challenge that made the Luna falter, retreating from her insidious intention. Elara was not just a spectator, she was an active participant in the psychological warfare, protecting Liam's focus, ensuring the fairness of the ancient rite. The duel raged, but the tide had undeniably turned. Volkov, panting, his silver fur matted with grime and blood, was growing visibly weary, his attacks becoming less effective, more desperate. Liam, though bearing wounds of his own, still moved with a controlled power, his golden eyes burning with an unyielding purpose. Finally, Liam saw his opening. As Volkov launched a wild, exhausted lunge, Liam sidestepped with lightning speed, hooking his powerful jaws around Volkov's neck, not to sever, but to assert dominance. With a swift, powerful twist, he slammed Volkov to the ground, pinning him decisively. His massive paw rested firmly on Volkov's chest, his fangs bared mere inches from the former alpha's throat. It was a decisive, undeniable victory. Liam did not kill him. Instead, with a powerful, deliberate movement, he tore the alpha's ceremonial necklace, the symbol of his authority, from around Volkov's neck, letting it clatter to the ground. Then, with a low, commanding growl that resonated with ancient power, he forced Volkov's head down, compelling him to submit. The act was public, humiliating, and utterly complete. Liam had defeated the alpha, not with lethal force, but with a decisive move that publicly stripped him of his power and authority, leaving no doubt in anyone's mind who the true alpha now was. The reign of deceit was over. Liam did not kill him. Instead, with a powerful, deliberate movement, he tore the alpha's ceremonial necklace, the symbol of his authority, from around Volkov's neck, letting it clatter to the ground. Then with a low, commanding growl that resonated with ancient power, he forced Volkov's head down, compelling him to submit. The act was public, humiliating, and utterly complete. Liam had defeated the Alpha, not with lethal force, but with a decisive move that publicly stripped him of his power and authority, leaving no doubt in anyone's mind who the true Alpha now was. The reign of deceit was over. A stunned silence fell over the clearing, heavier than any before it. The pack watched, transfixed, as Liam stood over the defeated Volkov, his dark fur bristling with triumphant power. The illusion of Volkov's invincibility, meticulously crafted over years, had been shattered in a single brutal moment. Then, as if on cue, the oldest, wisest wolves in the pack began to lower their heads, their eyes fixed on Liam. One by one, then in clusters the entire pack followed suit. Heads bowed, bodies lowered, they knelt before Liam, a sea of humbled fur and eyes, acknowledging him as their rightful Alpha. Even Kale, who had once so cruelly rejected Ilara, was among them, his face etched with a profound regret, his head bowed lower than most. The collective submission was absolute, undeniable proof that justice had finally prevailed. Liam's golden eyes, now devoid of combat's fire, swept over his new pack, a deep satisfaction in their depths. Then, his gaze landed on Ilara, standing resolute and proud at the edge of the circle. A different light entered his eyes, a warmth that banished the last vestiges of the battle. He walked towards her, his powerful stride purposeful, his entire being radiating a profound affection. When he reached her, he nuzzled her gently, a soft, intimate gesture that spoke volumes. Then, turning to face the still kneeling pack, his voice when he spoke was clear and strong, filled with dignity and an immense, palpable love. "This my pack," he announced, his voice echoing through the quiet clearing, "is Ilara, my Luna, the true Luna of this pack." A collective gasp went through the assembled wolves. Ilara's heart swelled with a joy so intense it brought tears to her eyes. This was not merely an announcement, it was a public declaration, a moment of profound vindication for every humiliation she had suffered. Liam, with unwavering conviction, spoke of her strength, her unwavering spirit, her courage in seeking him out, and her resilience in enduring his brutal training. He recounted the prophecy, revealing how their journey had been foretold, how she had been his partner in reclaiming what was rightfully theirs. He made it clear that her place beside him was earned, not given, born of a unique power and wisdom that made her his destined mate. Ilara's gaze, drawn by an almost magnetic pull, found Kale's among the kneeling wolves. His head was still bowed, but she could feel his regret, his shame practically emanating from him. He lifted his eyes, meeting hers for a fleeting moment, and in them, she saw the desperate plea for forgiveness, the agonizing realization of what he had lost. She offered him a quiet, dignified rejection, her expression clear, her voice firm but devoid of bitterness. "You had your chance, Kale," she thought, her message transmitted through their shared pack link, cutting through the air like a sharp blade. "And you chose weakness over truth. I have found my true match, a bond forged in strength and justice, not in fleeting pride." She turned her back to him then, symbolically closing that chapter of her life forever, her focus entirely on Liam, her true mate. The reign of Volkov and Serafina was officially over. Liam, with Ilara's counsel, decreed their immediate exile. No vicious punishment, no lingering torment. Simply a banishment to the harsh wilderness they so despised. A fate Liam himself had endured, but without the support of a loving mate. The pack, having witnessed the true nature of their former leaders, offered no dissent. With the old corruption purged, a new beginning dawned for the Silverwood pack. Under Liam and Ilara's wise and just leadership, the healing began. Liam, now the undisputed Alpha, ruled with a firm but compassionate hand, guided by the principles of fairness and integrity that had led to his initial banishment. Ilara, as Luna, brought a crucial balance, her empathy and fierce protectiveness ensuring that no wolf, regardless of lineage or perceived weakness, would ever again suffer the humiliation she had endured. They restructured the pack, emphasizing unity, respect, and mutual aid. The laughter and jeers that had once filled the clearing were replaced by the harmonious sounds of a pack truly thriving, embracing a new era of transparency, strength, and unwavering justice. With the old corruption purged, a new beginning dawned for the Silverwood pack. Under Liam and Alara's wise and just leadership, the healing began. Liam, now the undisputed alpha, ruled with a firm but compassionate hand, guided by the principles of fairness and integrity that had led to his initial banishment. Alara, as Luna, brought a crucial balance, her empathy and fierce protectiveness ensuring that no wolf, regardless of lineage or perceived weakness, would ever again suffer the humiliation she had endured. They restructured the pack, emphasizing unity, respect, and mutual aid. The laughter and jeers that had once filled the clearing were replaced by the harmonious sounds of a pack truly thriving, embracing a new era of transparency, strength, and unwavering justice. Alara and Liam established a new thriving society, not merely a pack, but a community built on the bedrock of respect, justice, and an unwavering unity. Their love story, once a desperate quest born of sorrow, blossomed into a legend whispered around campfires, a testament to resilience and the profound truth of finding one's true worth. No longer were the strong allowed to prey on the weak. Liam's firm but fair governance ensured that every wolf had a voice, every grievance was heard, and every member contributed to the collective strength. Alara, his Luna, was the heart of this transformation, her experiences of humiliation and exile having carved deep wells of wisdom and empathy within her. She championed the marginalized, established new traditions that celebrated individual strengths, and fostered a sense of belonging that had been conspicuously absent under Volkov's tyrannical rule. The pack flourished under their dual leadership, growing stronger not just in numbers and territory, but in spirit and interconnectedness. The hunting parties were more successful, their shared spoils distributed equitably. The elders, once sidelined, were revered for their wisdom, their stories now valued and integrated into the pack's daily life. The pups, growing up in an environment free from fear and prejudice, were vibrant, confident, embodying the bright future Liam and Alara had sacrificed so much to build. Alara, once a discarded outcast, now stood as a revered Luna, her quiet strength a beacon for all. Her past shame was not forgotten, but transformed into a profound source of understanding, fueling her ability to guide and nurture. She understood the sting of rejection, the ache of loneliness, and used that knowledge to ensure no other wolf felt the same isolation. Her life became a living testament to overcoming adversity, a powerful narrative of self-discovery and ultimate triumph. The mating ceremony, once a source of terror and shame, was reformed, becoming a true celebration of consensual love and mutual respect, free from public judgment or forced pairings. It was no longer a stage for cruelty, but a sacred bond. The Silverwood pack, under their guidance, became a shining example in the wider shifter world, a place where integrity mattered more than dominance, and unity above all. Liam, the banished alpha, found his ultimate redemption not in vengeance, but in justice and the loving partnership he forged. Alara, the humiliated she-wolf, found her true power and voice, becoming an indispensable leader. Together they proved that true strength lay not in unchallenged power, but in moral courage, unwavering love, and the profound ability to heal. Their legacy was not just a revived pack, but a future built on the values they had so fiercely fought for, a future shining with hope. Thank you for watching. If you were inspired by Alara's remarkable journey from humiliation to revered Luna, please subscribe to our channel for more captivating stories like this. We love bringing you tales of love, revenge, and redemption that stir the soul and explore the depths of the human and shifter spirit. And don't forget to check out our next video, where we explore another captivating story filled with unexpected heroes and thrilling adventures. Your support helps us continue to tell these powerful narratives. We hope Alara and Liam's triumph reminds you that even in the darkest moments, courage and truth can illuminate the path to your destiny.